Here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. Freak out day today in conservative world. Wow, what a day for whining, complaining, the victim class. Whew, yeah, the fascists, well, going full on. What's amazing to me, quite remarkable. The Back the Blue folks, you know, the folks with the blue flags, support the police. We love law enforcement. Today calling to defund the FBI. Yeah. Because, you know, turns out that, you know, they're only against criming when it's not them. Yeah, evidently that's it. You know, that's the caveat. We're in favor of criming when it's us, but when criming is someone else, that's bad. And look, all of the people who are coming out going, you know, today's the day that the Civil War started. The people who are coming out and defending Trump without knowing what's going on, these are your fascists. These are your people who are going full on fascist. And you wait, it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse because what's interesting, oh boy, is that nowhere have you seen Trump supporters anywhere in the country go, he could be guilty. I've yet to find one who's going, hey, you know, they went through the whole process. They got a search warrant. They went in front of a judge. They laid out all the documents. They then enforced this. You know, Merrick Garland, the guy who's done nothing crazy. This is the guy who's you're thinking is using this as a political ploy. No conservative has done this yet. None of them. No, because Trump is watching. Understand that. Because the base, you know, the poorly educated, the ones that Trump says he loves so much, they don't care what Trump has done. Ends justify the means. They've been told, you know, tons of times, you know, there's no voter fraud. They don't believe it. So this is an interesting moment. Now, here's the fun part. And we're going to get to some of this, but the fun part is this is the Super Bowl for grifters. Today is the Super Bowl for grifters because my email box full, jam-packed multiple times today, and not just from Trump and the kids, from all of them, from all of the cabal of grifters. This is their Super Bowl because this is how you're going to be able to fleece the flock. This is how you're going to be able to do it. All you got to say is, hey, look what they're doing to our poor guy. Look what they're doing. You got McCarthy, the minority leader in the House, who wants to be majority leader, wants to be speaker. Warned Attorney General Merrick Garland that payback is coming for searching Trump's payback. McCarthy, a guy who's refused a subpoena to the January 6th committee. Yeah, but hey, never mind. Law and order people, except when it applies to them. Laura Ingraham on her program. Again, news, Fox News, journalist she is. She said, you just wait till we get back into power. Who's we? Who are you talking about, Laura? Who's we? Who are you part of? You mean when the Republicans get back into power? Oh, yeah, we know. Now that you pulled back the curtain, you are part of them. I get it. You're the mouthpiece for the GOP. You're the mouthpiece for the fascist movement. I get it. And you got all of these Republicans now who have to do the performance. They've got to come out. They've got to get angry. Carrie Lake, the woman running for governor in Arizona, full mind, fire-breathing, freak out, losing her mind. And really a really bad performance, to be honest. Not Oscar-worthy by any stretch of the imagination. But she said, one of the darkest days in American history. August 8th. August 8th, 2022. This will be a day that will live in infamy, evidently. Oh, jeez. One of the darkest days. One of the darkest days. Never mind 9/11. Never mind the day that JFK was killed. Never mind when MLK was killed. Never mind when RFK. Never mind any. No. The bombing in Oklahoma City. No. The raiding of Trump's joint. The dark day. Eric Trump said no family in American history has taken more arrows in the back than his. I want to see the scars, because now are these figurative arrows? Because I'm not seeing any literal arrows. But if you're going to say your family's more victimized, I go Kennedy's, JFK, RFK, both murdered. But if you're arrows to bullets, if that's your difference. I love the victim cards, man. I love the victim cards. And the thing that gets me is, we're seeing people being who they are. Can we believe them? That these are people who, while waving the blue flag, we believe in the police, we support the police, we love the police, we love law enforcement, until they crime. They love them until it's them. Not one, as I said, not one conservative have said, chances are Trump's got a bunch of classified stuff. And yeah, we were the party who was going lock her up over her emails. Again, remember, emails that she sent without classified stuff in it. And after it was sent, was then classified. Now you wanted to lock her up. Somehow that was worse than stealing boxes of classified information. Now, I've had a couple people whisper at me, don't be surprised if he's charged with not registering as a foreign agent. Now, stop and think about this. A former president not registering as a foreign agent while having classified documents. Oh, gee. And will it move the base? Not an inch, because they don't care. They don't care, because they're going to believe all of the nonsense. And look, the reality is my email box, as I said, full of this, hey, they're coming after our guy. And, Donald Trump has said this, they're not just coming after me, they're coming after you. And I'm just in the way. Oh, by the way, send me money. Every one of these groups, Town Hall, Free Presser, Post Millennial, all of the National Republican Senatorial Committee, all of them. Breaking news, Joe Biden Department of Justice has stormed President Donald Trump's home. Send us money. I mean, hundreds of these today. So Flock going to get fleeced, and that's okay. What's that saying about a fool and his money being parted? This is that. My problem? The dim are going to continue to buy it, because the other message coming with, they're going after Donald Trump, is the IRS is going to come for you too. Because both Lindsey Graham, Marco Rubio, and a number of other ones have said, well, if you think the government's out of control now, you just wait till those 87,000 IRS agents start looking under every rock. You just wait. Again, because they've spent a couple of decades trying to demonize the IRS, getting conservatives to hate them because conservatives were breaking the law. Again, back to the, when we crime, it's okay. When those people crime, crackdown, full punishment, lengthy sentences. Going to be interesting. But I come back to this flip-flopping on the classified stuff, lock her up. Where are the chance to lock him up? Anyway, let's go to the phones. We've got Kurt from Akron on line one. Kurt, what's on your mind, brother?
Well, first of all, I hope Hillary Clinton is laughing her butt off for the last 36 hours.
Yeah, I don't think she's laughing because, I still wish she had been president so we wouldn't have to live through all this nightmare.
Right. Oh, definitely. But, hey, the reason I called is I don't ever hear any liberal commentators, and that's what you are a commentator, and I'm not saying you specifically, but I haven't heard any liberal commentators actually talk about those 30,000 emails. Oh, by the way, before I go any further, August 8th, definitely not a good day for for the last two disgraced Republican presidents.
Bad President's Day.
Nixon had to announce he was resigning on August 8th.
Yep.
And then yesterday. But anyway, in the book What Happened by Hillary Clinton after the election, she mentioned the email situation. And she admitted in that book that it was not the right, well, it wasn't the best thing to do.
Stupid.
But at the time, right. And if you remember, at the time, in 2009, the government agencies were kind of getting hacked at that time. You're always hearing about everyone being hacked and blah, blah, blah. Hillary Clinton thought, well, why not send those emails to a server in my house that is 24/7 protected by the U.S. Secret Service? That was why she did it, because it was Bill Clinton's Secret Service protected server.
No, I fully understand the rationale behind it. The problem was,
I just never heard anyone say. But you're right; it was a stupid thing to do, obviously. But at least she admitted it.
Yeah, no, and that's the problem. Had she been a Republican, she would have never admitted it, and they were just coming after me. That's the problem with liberals. We were always explaining it and saying, we did this for a reason, and here's the reason, and then explaining. And as Johnson said back, in the '60s, if you're explaining, you're losing, and that's why we lose.
Exactly, and the problem is liberals, and I hate to say this, but liberals tend to come off a little smarter than the average non-voter who's voting for Trump. Because if you remember and if you realize, a lot of these people who voted for Trump, at least the first time, most of them probably never went into a voting booth before him.
No, I can attest to that. Look, when I called him winning back in April of 2016, I went back to a funeral back in Cleveland. And my family, who you could call the basket of deplorables, none of them have never voted, never cared about politics, always complained, but never actually voted. They were all registering and all enthusiastically supporting Trump because they bought the vision that he was going to bring back the good old days of those manufacturing jobs, those union jobs up and down Brook Park Avenue, the Ford and the Chevy plants and all the feeder plants.
Down in Canton and Akron and all those other places.
They bought that. He was going to bring back manufacturing, and they were enthusiastically supporting him. That's how I knew he was going to win, because he was reaching people who had never participated before. Because he sold them a dream, like any good con man does. He sold them a dream.
If you think about it too, after the conventions, after the two nominees were determined, if you listen to Trump post political convention, he starts sounding a bit like a Bernie Sanders populist in a sense. Like Hillary Clinton's like, well, we can't do free college, or we can't do this or that, but this is what we'll do, blah, blah, blah. Bill Clinton. Donald Trump started sounding a little bit like Bernie Sanders to appeal to those voters that we were just talking about.
Absolutely, which is why I've always said, had Bernie been the nominee, he would have beat Trump.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, he would have. And then, of course, here's the flip side to those people never having participated in voting prior to Trump, because I know a guy who told me this because he didn't vote until Trump. You get called up for jury duty now. So there's the flip side.
Yeah, I don't know that. I don't actually know that that's reality. I know people who have never voted who got called up for jury duty.
Okay.
I thought they went by your driver's license.
I thought they did too, but I know a few people that say they don't vote because they don't want to get called for jury duty.
How idiotic is that?
I wish it were. Yeah. So I wish it were the driver's license. That way there would be more people in the hopper. Because, as much as I enjoy my civic duty, since I turned 18, I've been called at least 4 times. And I know people who haven't been called once, and they've been voting since the 60s. So go figure.
Yeah, I'm one of those people. I've voted in every election of my entire life. I've been registered to vote everywhere I've ever lived since I've been 18. The day I signed up for selective service, I signed up to vote. And I have voted in every election since. I have never been called for jury duty. So it's one of those weird kind of things. And look, if I was called for jury duty, I would be the first one to say, yep, I'm going to here to do my duty. I'm going to do my responsibility. Like it or not, this is part of being a citizen of this country. And I have I really have no patience for people. Oh no, it's a hassle. Yeah, it's a hassle being a citizen.
And I would recommend too, every citizen at least once should volunteer to work the polls.
Yeah, no, good call. And
So,
right now
that's
more
a great
than ever.
civics lesson right there. Right, yeah, especially you need some liberals to kind of watch those conservative goons or jackbooted thugs that are going to be there trying to intimidate people.
I don't want ideologues at all. I want people who just want fairness.
No.
I want fairness. I want
Right.
people who are just going to say, look, this, when you get into that box, in that booth, you do what you do, but out here, it's fairness. That's what I want. I don't want the game to be tilted one way or another. And that's the problem.
You're right.
We see what the Republicans are doing right now. They're training people to tilt the game before you get into the ballot box. And that is a problem for me.
Exactly. And that's how Nazi Germany start.
Yeah, and today is one of those days where I fear we're heading down that road faster and faster.
Yeah, unfortunately. But hopefully people don't get complacent. 10 points ahead in Pennsylvania for John Fetterman. 10 points ahead in Ohio for Tim Ryan right now.
Yeah.
How Herschel Walker is within striking distance of Raphael Warnock, I'll never know. But please do not get complacent. We need to get these guys in.
There you go. Good stuff, Kurt, man. Appreciate it.
Hey, thank you. Bye-bye.
Outstanding. No, I mean, look, at the end of this, it's going to come down to people showing up to voting. If your reason is that you're not voting because you might get called for jury duty, shame on you. Shame on you. That's all I got. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com, or give us a call, 1-866-416-RICK. 1-866-416-7425. Quick break. Right back. If you're a fan of the show, you've heard our labor history in 2 segments, and you can hear them on the radio pretty much anywhere in the U.S. Labor history has never been more important than it is right now. So here's what we'd like you to do. Tell a teacher. Tell a teacher that labor history is important and that they can get digestible 2-minute lessons that are absolutely free. Free to download, free to use, free to share. Tell a teacher to go to thericksmithshow.com/history and help us put labor back where it belongs, in the classroom. Generations of American workers fought, bled, and died to build the American way of life. It's our job to keep their stories alive. Go tell a teacher that we're here to help them do just that. Find us at thericksmithshow.com/history today.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So you gotta love this. Former New York City Police Commissioner Bernard Kerik. Remember Bernie? Bernie Kerik. He evidently told Newsmax that he's worried. He's worried those violent Democrats, those well-armed, heavily armed, gun-toting Democrats, they might try and assassinate Donald Trump. Yep, that's what Bernie said. Again, that projection thing. Very, very scary stuff. These people. Anyway, interesting news. My congressman, Scott Perry, you may remember him as the guy who asked for a pardon, reportedly. Also, some interesting texts going on about, getting a certain person put in as attorney general. Some of that stuff going on. Evidently, according to him, the FBI, while he was out with his family, possibly on vacation, I think the story goes. Evidently, they seized his cell phone. Yep, had a search warrant, seized his cell phone. Interesting times ahead. I know, they could be coming for you. Let's quick go to the phones. Got Alice on line 1. Alice, how are we doing today?
Pretty good. That's what I was calling to tell you, that WAPO had just had it on, breaking news, that they seized his cell phone. And, last night I said, well, nobody was saying anything, but I think it took them a while. They had to all get together and, get their story straight before they all started tweeting and going on, the news and whatnot.
Yeah, so this is the question now. The question is, was it smart to wait, or should they have gone and got everybody's cell phones and everybody's stuff yesterday while they were doing the raid at Trump's house? Because you're going, well, trouble, we better start deleting stuff. Or did you give them the night to go and start, texting each other whatever they were saying in that moment so that maybe you got that night of response? I don't know.
I don't know either, but I do know this much. And we should make a bumper sticker or something. Democrats believe no one is above the law.
Nope.
And Republicans believe that there is no Democrat above the law because they feel that their party is special and laws do not apply to them. And I'm just wondering because on Twitter, the GOP Judiciary Committee or whatever was tweeting, about it. And I tweeted back and said, and would you be this upset if had it been Barack Obama that had taken the documents?
No, they didn't. They'd have lost their ever-loving freaking minds.
Well, I think I'm blocked now. I think they blocked me.
That's how that works, isn't it?
Yes, but I thought, hey, because, I tried for 5 years to get Trump and his crew to block me, and believe me, I got belligerent. I took it as a badge of courage if they would have blocked me, but I couldn't get anywhere. So apparently the Republicans were feeling a little bit snowflakey. So have a good evening, Rick.
Thank you, Alice. Appreciate it. No, I mean, the reality is as I said at the beginning, when they're doing the criming, Now, look, and this is where I've come down with this from the very beginning. Don't know what the charges are. I think Trump should release the search warrant. If he's this innocent, we should be able to get to see the search warrant. Now, the FBI is not going to release it to the general public, but Trump can, because they gave him a copy. Obviously, when they search your house, they give you a copy of what they're looking for, where they're looking, and all of that stuff. It's all written out there, signed by the judge, so you know who the judge is. Interestingly enough, this is another one of those. It's QAnon, and it's the Republican Party, so it's not surprising that they're accusing the judge of being a pedophile and tying him to Jeffrey Epstein, because evidently he was Jeffrey Epstein's lawyer, and all kinds of Q stuff. Not so much about the FBI head being a Trump appointee. Never mind that. But Trump could. He could, in fact, release the warrant so we can find out what they were looking for. We could know right now what the FBI was looking for and what they seized. We could. Trump could tell us. But he's not going to, because why? This is gold for them, because as he has said, he loves the poorly educated. As long as he can keep teasing this out, as long as he can keep going, they're coming for me, they're persecuting me, I'm a victim, send me money. I'm the victim, send me money. I'm the victim, send me money. He can keep cashing in. So I'm waiting, he could do this, but I assume it's going to be the wait. We've been waiting for the tax returns. We've been waiting for his health care plan. And I assume this is going to fall right into the same thing. We're probably never going to see the search warrant unless the FBI comes out with it at some point down the road, which at some point we have to know what it is they were looking for, what it is they found, one way or the other. One way or the other. Love to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you missed any of the program, podcast, wherever you get yours, you'll find ours. Going to take a quick break. When we come back, former Alabama Senator Doug Jones going to be here to share some thoughts on the day that was yesterday. Bad President's Day, August 8th. Back after this. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2.
On this day in labor history, the year was 1965. That was the day 53 construction tradesmen were killed in a fire at the Titan II ICBM launch complex near Searcy, Arkansas. It is considered one of the worst industrial accidents at a U.S. nuclear weapons facility. The complex was one of 4 sites containing Titan II missiles. Each missile weighed 340,000 pounds, measuring 103 feet in length and 10 feet in diameter. President Johnson had just committed more troops to the Vietnam War. The Air Force had hoped to strengthen the silo against a possible Soviet attack. They had contracted with Peter Kiewit and Son of Colorado to bring in electricians, carpenters, millwrights, painters, and pipe fitters for a number of tasks. Crews worked to shore up the silo, improve the blast doors, adjust hydraulics, and install emergency lighting. 52 of the 55 workers on all 9 levels of the silo were almost immediately asphyxiated when it suddenly filled with smoke and heat. The Air Force determined a welder on level 2 had accidentally pierced a high-pressure hydraulic line, igniting the fire. Investigators also concluded that the silo lacked adequate ventilation, alternative exits, and independent power sources. The contractor was held responsible for numerous safety violations, contributing to unsafe work conditions. The welder was found drowned in hydraulic fluid. 2 survivors suffered burns and smoke inhalation. They contested the Air Force's findings. One worker insisted no one had been welding on level 2. The other survivor stated he saw flames burst from the diesel engine just before the power went out. Both men insisted the fire started from below. By 1981, 2 more deadly accidents involving Titan II missiles would prompt President Reagan to order their deactivation.
Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
America's stringent system of corporate capitalism keeps carving out new depths of worker exploitation. Take Chick-fil-A, a right-wing, Atlanta-based fast food operation boasting that it follows, quote, biblically based principles. Like slavery? Well, Chick-fil-A hasn't gone quite that biblical yet, but one of its franchises recently pioneered a novel labor compensation innovation that comes close, literally paying some workers chicken feed. This outlet of the $11 billion a year chain called on area residents to staff its new drive-through express. But in lieu of wages, they were offering chicken sandwiches. Join the express team and you'd be paid 5 chicken items per shift. That worked out to less than minimum wage, plus indigestion. What we have here is one more absurd illustration that America's sanctified work ethic is a fraud, an empty promise that you'll get ahead if you just work hard enough, keep your nose to the grindstone, and stay loyal to the corporate order for life, no matter how vacuous. But the game is up, for workers across the economy are now seeking more from life than 50 years of serving the company. They're even organizing anti-workaholism groups like I Don't Want a Career, Rest is Resistance, and the NAP Ministry. But don't mistake this rebellion as mere satire by a few puckish slackers. Today's nationwide shortage of workers, from truck drivers to teachers, is not a momentary economic blip, but a defiant declaration of independence from a form of work that is life-sucking. This is Jim Hightower saying, people are not afraid of hard work, nor averse to long hours, if the task and the cause are worth both time and effort. And worth it is increasingly being measured in higher values than dollars alone, including a sense of purpose, community, respect, fairness, and fun.
Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So again, I look at what's going on around what I'll tell you, I can't imagine was something that was just done willy-nilly. I don't see Merrick Garland as someone who said, oh, just today we're going to go raid a former president's house. I'll bet every I is dotted, every T crossed, every word spelled properly on every document having to go through with this. But, look, that doesn't matter to the Trump crowd. In fact, the attacks that I've been seeing my email box filled. And again, some of the just most outrageous stuff, like, for instance, claiming the judge, pedophile. Again, this is where they go, to the worst possible places. It's crazy. Anyway, here to share some thoughts on what happened on August 8th, what we'll call Bad President's Day. I've asked former Alabama Senator Doug Jones to come share his thoughts. Former federal prosecutor, I think he might have some insight that, well, maybe I don't. Senator, thanks for taking time for us.
Rick, it's always good to be with you. Thanks for having me tonight.
So this is a big deal. I mean, this isn't something that anyone would just take willy-nilly going after and searching an ex-president's home. Look, it's one thing to come at Rick Smith and come to Rick Smith's house. It's another thing to go after an ex-president. So there's got to be something here.
Yeah, Rick, you're absolutely right. And I want to make sure people understand there is nothing to indicate that the Justice Department is kind of, as you said, going after the ex-president. What they're doing is going after what they believed is evidence of a crime. Remember that this was the execution of a search warrant. This was not some willy-nilly raid that the government can just conduct on people's homes. The Constitution prohibits that. And so what happened here is that there was enough evidence that developed on some issue about some potential crime. We don't know what it is at this point. We're hearing different things from various sources about classified and documents and national security interests, but till we see an affidavit, we don't know. But what we do know is, according to the procedures, an FBI agent gathered that evidence, put it in the form of an affidavit, swore to it that it was, what they have gathered, and a judge, a separate branch of government, Rick, and this is really important. People are talking about a rogue Justice Department and how the Justice Department has gone crazy and going after somebody. No, the Justice Department cannot conduct a search like this. They've got to get the approval of a separate branch of government, an independent judiciary. So they provided that, and they established, one, probable cause to believe that a crime had been committed, and two, probable cause to believe there was evidence of that crime on that residence. And that's what it takes. And so this is really serious. I think people are beginning to try to figure out, well, is this going to lead to an indictment? I think we're a little early on that. Certainly that it could be, but I will tell you this too, Rick. One thing that gets overlooked in there, this is really, the government takes classified and top secret documents very serious. And if they believe that there were documents there that needed to be held and they could talk to the president's team, couldn't get them, this may be an effort to just secure documents. I don't think it's just that, but it could very well be. So we'll see. Regardless, it was an incredibly consequential decision that went all the way up, and you can rest assured that everybody knew the potential consequences and really, really put a lot of thought and effort into making sure they got it right.
Now, I'm not a lawyer. I don't play one on the radio or TV, but it seems like Trump could put all this to bed by releasing the search warrant and letting us know what the FBI was looking for. Couldn't he?
Well, he has only certain documents. The warrant itself is just really an administrative document that talks about what they were searching for and the residence to be searched. There's also an inventory that the government has to make of documents that were, or any evidence that was seized from the residence. But the real meat of the coconut is the affidavit that formed the basis for getting the search warrant. That is currently under seal and is likely to stay under seal for a period of time. There's a lot of reasons for that, to protect the investigation, to protect the potential defendant. We'll see where that goes. But that under seal affidavit is where you really would be able to find what it is that the government has gathered and what it is that they were looking for and what crimes they were looking to think that there was evidence of that they would find at Mar-a-Lago.
Now, I've said today is the Super Bowl for grifters, because I don't know if you have seen your email box fill up like mine has, but Trump and the kids are, they're playing the victim card. Send us money. The National Republican Senatorial Campaign Committee. Hey, Trump's the victim. Send us money. Every group, basically Trump's a victim. Send us money. And look, there are people who are going to send them lots of money under the guise of, when we take power, we're going to go get them. Laura Ingraham, for instance, said, hey, when you wait till we're in power, we're going to go after all these people. This is kind of scary talk from the people who claim to back the blue and claim to be, the law and order crowd. This is kind of scary talk, isn't it?
Well, that to me is not as scary talk as some of the voices that we're hearing that are essentially calling for a civil war and violence. It's that kind of dog whistles that really scare me. The political rhetoric was expected. You can count on the fact that Merrick Garland and his team knew that there would be political blowback. In today's world, it was going to be used as a fundraising tool. And by the way, there have been Democrats over the course of our history that have been prosecuted that have also done the same thing. Every political person, regardless of the party, generally the first thing they do is say this is a political persecution. That is the defense de jure. Most of the time it is not the case, and most of the time it never works. On occasion it might. But I don't think any of what we're hearing was unexpected from a political standpoint. What really has surprised me, though, is that there are a lot of muted voices out there. There are a lot of Republican leaders who are keeping their powder dry because they know the significance of the issuance of a search warrant by a United States district judge. They know the significance of that, and it doesn't come lightly. And they're kind of keeping their powder dry a little bit. They'll let the RNC and Trump play the victim card, try to raise money. But these folks are not going. There's a lot of Republicans out there that are not going out on a limb just yet until they see more.
No. And look, I'm not going out on a limb saying he's going. I've got people going, oh, he's going to go to jail. No, I don't. I actually don't ever foresee him in an orange jumpsuit picking up litter on the side of the highway. Sorry, I don't see that happening. But there are a lot of people on the left who, yesterday was a big day. Oh, we're finally going to get him. And for me, it's not about are we going to go get him. I believe in the rule of law, and I believe that it's equally applied to everyone. And I hope we all should believe if we can reunite this country, and if there's anything that should bind us together, it should be that justice blind thing, I think is kind of important.
I totally agree with you. And I know there are folks on the left saying we're finally going to get him. But the fact of the matter is, I think most people are really a little bit relieved that they know that there is an investigation going on. That's really what people want. They want folks to follow the rule of law. They believe that no one is above the law, and they want to see it done right. They don't want the Justice Department to be a political issue. And just because there was an extraordinary execution of a search warrant on a former president's house does not, by and of itself, make this political, as many on the right are trying to portray. It's just not that simple. It is kind of ironic that the folks that are screaming the loudest used to be the law and order people. They used to be the ones backing law enforcement and the rule of law. We hear it so much, but it's just, in this day and age, Rick, so much of that has become a cry of convenience and not really a cry of personal belief anymore. It's whatever is politically expedient at the time. And right now, it's politically expedient to scream about the FBI and to play the victim and rally around someone that you support, regardless of whether or not the person happens to maybe be a criminal or not.
You're listening to the Rick Smith Show here with former Alabama Senator Doug Jones. Doug, I'm looking at Lindsey Graham, I'm looking at Marco Rubio, and you said there are Republicans out there are keeping their powder dry. These are a couple who aren't. They brought up the issue of the IRS now, saying, well, if you think the government's out of control now, you wait till Biden's IRS comes for you. Because look, conservatives have again, as I said at the beginning, they're all law and order and against criming until it's their criming that gets paid attention to. But it's this kind of hatred towards government, this kind of, feeding fear to the masses. This again.
Yeah. And again, let's remember the last real evidence that we've seen about the IRS improperly coming after anyone was just recently when it was revealed that they started doing audits of James Comey and Andrew McCabe in the FBI during the Trump administration, who were not friends of the administration. So you expect that. The fact of the matter is that so many in the Republican Party do not like the IRS. They don't think people should pay their fair share of taxes, and they don't want the IRS auditing the wealthy corporations or the wealthiest individuals because that's who butters their bread, and that's what they're screaming about. That and but look, it's a crazy political world we're living in. Hopefully, most of the people in this country know better and can see through it. You're going to have a base on both sides who really are going to believe whatever they want to believe. But I think by and large, the people in this country are going to think This is really serious. This is not just some fly-by-night. You cannot listen to Merrick Garland talk for more than 5 minutes and think that he has a political bone in his body. He doesn't. He's been a judge for 30 years. He calls them like he sees them, and this is a non-political decision. We'll see how it plays out and what evidence he has, but I can assure you it's a non-political decision.
You know, one of the things I've always loved about you, Doug, is you're the voice of calm. You're the voice of moderation. You know, slow down. Hey, let's look at everything. And I think you're running for Senate again, because we need that in the Senate. We need level-headedness, because you pointed out something I think that most people don't seem to think about with the Comey and the McCabe situation. The things that we're hearing from the right, the things we're hearing from Republicans and Trump, are the things that they were doing. And it's this kind of, Democrats are going to do this, this, and this because, oh, by the way, it's what we want to do and what we would do if we were in power. And the reason I bring this up is just about 2 weeks ago, this idea of Schedule F was going to be the grand plan Trump was going to bring back. And they were going to make patronage great again. We're going to fire all these federal employees and we're going to bring loyal people back. And it just seems that all of the things, all of the accusations that I'm getting from the right are the things that they want to do, that they're claiming Democrats are doing it, and yet, it's just not holding water.
Yeah, and think about this too, Rick. Remember that if some of the reporting is correct, that this is about documents, classified documents, maybe top secret documents, presidential records that have been destroyed, that are being concealed. You got to put this in the context of everything that has come out in the last 6 weeks or so, or the last 2 months with the January 6th committee. Secret Service agents deleting text messages, other federal agents. They said everybody, I think it was in the Department of Homeland Security, the top people were deleting all their text messages, improperly deleting their text messages. You had allegations that Mark Meadows was throwing documents in the fireplace at the White House. We've seen photographs of notes that were torn up and stuffed down a toilet. So you got to put this in the context, and you got to understand that it may be very legitimate and seems very legitimate that there was a very real concern that any document that is at Mar-a-Lago is destined for an incinerator or something if they didn't go get it, especially given the fact that we're also hearing that some of the folks that they were dealing with may have misled them about what documents were there. Agents have been down there before and looked at some things, and now there's this allegation that they may have been misled about what was there. The agents were. That in itself could be a crime as well.
No, and look, there's part of me that goes, I wouldn't be all that concerned if Trump did flush it down the toilet, and I feel sorry for whatever FBI agent had to dig his hand in there to look for stuff. My concern is, and this has been floated to me a couple of times, that possibly foreign agent kind of stuff could be coming down the road. Again, conspiracy talked out, that who knows. But those documents could end up for sale, could end up in the hands of someone else. That's what really concerns me, because sadly, I don't know that I trust the former president to have those documents.
Well, I think there's a lot of people that share that, but regardless of whether you trust him or not, there's a law. There's a law that says he's not supposed to have those. There's a law that says that people aren't supposed to conceal them, mutilate them, hide them, store them, whatever. There's a federal law. Congress, has passed this law. The very people that are complaining about this have had this law in the books for some time, and so it is a law that there's a reason behind it because of the very reasons you're talking about, and it could easily fall in the wrong hands, whether it is the former president or not. But there will be other people that will have access to that, and in this particular case, Rick, what we've seen is a former president who has no norms when it comes, or no respect for the institutions of government, for the laws, the Constitution, who always believed he could, as president of the United States, could do anything. Richard Nixon famously said that to David Frost one time. If the president does it, it can't be illegal. Right. Well, I think clearly Donald Trump had the same view, and he just would thumb his nose at all the laws, all the rules, all the regulations. And we cannot allow that to happen.
Well, remember, he could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and never lose a vote over it, if you remember that. But so, like I said, I think you're one of the most level-headed people I know who served in Congress. How concerned should we be when you look at the fact that, some of the stuff that we saw coming out of that administration, some of the attacks that, like on McCabe and on Comey, deleting of the messages, the kind of talk of consolidating power, making patronage possibly great again. All of this direction keeps heading us in the direction of that F word. Not the nasty F word, but the other one. Well, it's a nasty F word. Fascism is a nasty F word. Right. But how concerned should we be?
Look, I think people should be very concerned if they really can, if they can get out of silos. And that's just people on the extremes on the right and the left. They need to get out of their silos and start looking and come to facts and truth. The democracy is about truth. Democracy is about having the same set of facts that people understand. And you can take the same set of facts and come to different conclusions about what you do with them. But we're not dealing with the same set of facts with people anymore, because we've got the right, with Fox News and others that have a completely distorted view of actually what's going on. And some people will say that view is also their views coming from the left that are very distorted. We're in a bad place in this country right now that we need to come together. We need a national purpose. Rick, I was talking to a friend just yesterday, and we need a national, a unity of purpose. And I don't know what it might be. You would have thought that COVID would have done it, but instead COVID became political. You would have thought that the war in Ukraine would do it. Instead, it became more political. You would have thought that January 6th would have done that, and it did for about 18 hours, and then it all fell apart. And so it is a really tough spot that we're in right now. Yeah. And if we don't start trying to pull people together and pull people toward the center and do some things like they got done in the Senate this week with the Inflation Reduction Act, we're going to be in a bad place, and it's going to just drive people into their corners. And there's a lot of people out there, you know what, Rick? There's a lot of people out there making a lot of money right now on driving people to their corners. And we got to figure out a way to stop that.
Yeah, my email box is full of it. So let me move into this real quick to kind of wrap this up, because we've been talking about Trump, we've been talking about all of this stuff that's been divisive and tearing us apart. But what should be uniting us is the fact that, we got a CHIPS Act signed today that's going to help us rebuild manufacturing. That should be something that unifies us, yet not many Republicans voted for it. I think the Biden administration, while not my first choice, he's been killing it with legislation that any administration would be thrilled to have historic investments in infrastructure. This CHIPS bill, you could go down the list of accomplishments that just not getting recognized.
Yeah, no, you got the CHIPS bill that was a bipartisan support. You had the PAC Act, which is helping so many veterans that received 86 votes in the U.S. Senate. You had the infrastructure bill. Every state in this country is going to benefit from that infrastructure bill. Those were bipartisan. But what the president and Democrats have done is that, if we will work with Republicans, we are the party that will try to work with people. But if you spurn us, if you say absolutely not, like on the Inflation Reduction Act, like on the COVID package that they did, the American Recovery Act, then we're going to help the American people, and we're going to do it on our own. And they will compromise. And it has been an extraordinary run for President Biden and Democrats over the last 18 months. Extraordinary. I defy anyone to come back in American history. Lyndon Johnson, maybe, Franklin D. Roosevelt, they have done some amazing things, and we've got to start talking about that. I've said for so long, I'm tired of the Debbie Downers. I want to hear people talking about this and crowing about it, because this is the party that can bring people together. The other party is dividing, because one of two things are happening on the other side of the aisle, Rick. Either you got a MAGA faction there that is just trying to retain power in any way, stoke violence, do whatever they can, punish Tinkerbell if Tinkerbell speaks out against them. And then you got the others who are staying silent, that are enabling the other part of the party. They're being held hostage. And so it's the Democrats who are seeing this Big Ten and becoming a governing majority, and that's really important.
No, like somebody has to, because the Republicans don't have a plan. And the only plan that we see in writing is the Rick Scott plan, which is to do away with everything government does and then hope and pray that maybe possibly we can get some of it back. So, Granny, if you're listening, they want to destroy Social Security, and it's in writing. They want to abolish it in 5 years.
And Rick, there's another thing. You hear so many people in this country, and rightly so, concerned about the deficit, concerned that we're borrowing more money and that we are mortgaging our children, our grandchildren's future. A lot of conservatives, really, that's all they talk about. Here are two interesting facts. Number one, the deficit increased gigantically under Donald Trump. The tax cut bill that they did in 2017 really contributed enormously to the deficit. Guess who is reducing that deficit? Joe Biden and Democrats. Right now, the Inflation Reduction Act plus the budgets that they're doing is actually going to start reducing those deficits over the course of time. So Democrats are delivering here, and we've got to talk about it. And I really think we're going to have winds at our back going into the midterms and defy history.
You better, Doug, because you better get out there and start, saying this stuff. Joe Biden better get out there, because look, if Donald Trump had anything close to the legislative victories that this administration has had, he would be out there crowing that he was the best president ever, that this was the best achievements ever. That he would be out there taking credit for the moon landing.
He would still be president, as a matter of fact, if he had done anything close to this. But they were not capable of doing it, and they had the House and the Senate, both of them, for 2 years. And there was nothing that they could get done because they were trying extremes. Everything was an extreme with the Trump administration. Biden is not that way. He believes in progress, and that's what we've gotten over the last year and a half.
Yeah, and like today, as I said, he signed the CHIPS bill today, which I think is extremely important. That we invest in manufacturing to help rebuild our communities, rebuild the working class of this country. And for me, the other part of it, and this is where we're going to end up, the fact that he's promoting those jobs to be good union jobs so that workers have good wages, good benefits, and job security, I think that is enormously important.
There hasn't been a president in the last half century or more that was more pro-organized labor than Joe Biden. He understands it. He understands the importance and how it built the middle class. And that's what he ran on. It's what he's promised. That's what he's done his entire career. So I think there are good things even yet to come.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one thing to talk the talk. Look, I voted for President Obama twice. I shook his hand twice. We were going to get labor law done. Didn't get it done. He talked about comfortable shoes. Never put them on. This president's actually talking the talk and walking the walk. So I'm thrilled with what he's done so far.
Me too. I think it's great going into the midterms. But the main thing is that people just need to recognize it. They need to talk about it. And I've been telling folks, everything that we just talked about, Rick, is showing the plan. Even today, I'm watching the news right before I came on the show. Gasoline down $1 over the last year, but over the last few weeks, but below $4, the average below $4. Food prices are going to start coming down. Online retail prices dropped 1%, the first drop in over 2 years. So we've got a plan. And the thing that I think people need or want, and I've said this all along, voters want to know that somebody is out there fighting for them. They know instinctively that things can't get done overnight. We didn't get into this position overnight, but they want to see people working for them. Yep. And that's what the administration and the Democrats in Congress are doing. And you're not seeing anything but crickets and complaints and vitriol from the other side.
There you go. Doug, I appreciate you taking time for us. Thanks so much.
All right, Rick. Anytime, buddy. Take care.
Good stuff. Former Alabama Senator Doug Jones. Love to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you miss any portion of the program, make sure you grab the podcast. Wherever you get yours, you'll find ours. And look, at the end of the day, this administration, regardless of all the news about Trump and all the stuff going on, they are literally killing it and doing great work. I'm thrilled with what they're doing. Back after this.
I am confident the Inflation Reduction Act will endure as one of the defining legislative feats of the 21st century.
Green News Report special coverage. U.S. Senate passes landmark climate legislation.
That landmark and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
Our bill reduces inflation, lowers costs, creates millions of good-paying jobs, and is the boldest climate package in U.S. history.
Also, coincidentally, the only climate package in U.S. history. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, snarky, yes, but it's true.
Yes.
This is the only climate package anywhere near this size in U.S. history. And it is a big deal.
Yes, it most definitely is. First, one of the reasons why this bill is so important, Death Valley National Park closed on Friday after getting hit with a year's worth of rainfall in just 3 hours on Friday, triggering flash floods and mudslides that temporarily stranded 1,000 people.
This, unless I'm mistaken, is the 4th 1,000-year flood in the U.S. over the past week and a half.
That's correct. Climate studies confirm that global warming is making torrential rainfall events more frequent and intense, and it is just the latest in a barrage of extreme weather disasters that have plagued the entire northern hemisphere this summer. With that barrage unfolding in the background, on Sunday, Senate Democrats passed the Inflation Reduction Act, the landmark climate, health care, tax reform, and deficit reduction bill, the culmination of decades of effort in overcoming the influence of the powerful fossil fuel industry and Republican obstruction. The bill is historic. On climate alone, it contains $370 billion in investments economy-wide to move the nation away from the polluting fossil fuels that cause dangerous man-made climate change and shift the country to clean energy in the largest ever federal effort to address man-made global warming. Multiple independent analyses conclude that the bill's provisions would cut U.S. carbon emissions roughly 40% by 2030, which climate scientists say is critical for us to have a chance at avoiding catastrophic climate impacts.
Good luck.
The sweeping bill is far from perfect. It includes major support for the fossil fuel industry, like expanding public lands and waters available for fossil fuel leasing and subsidies to develop fossil energy carbon capture projects that were required to secure the vote of Coal State Democratic Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia. Democratic Senator Kyrsten Sinema of Arizona forced changes to protect billionaires and corporations' profits, but also negotiated $5 billion in additional drought assistance for southwestern states.
Yes, she did. I think you owe her an apology, Desi.
On the plus side, the bill has massive investments and incentives for private industry to manufacture and deploy clean energy, a first-ever fee to force the oil and gas industry to stop methane leaks, a nonprofit green bank to build clean energy projects, subsidies to build a domestic clean energy manufacturing supply chain and boost U.S. clean energy exports. It also has significant funding for households to decarbonize and save consumers money with incentives and grants for electric vehicles, heat pumps, and home weatherization. Billions in investments for low-income communities that bear the brunt of fossil fuel pollution, funding to help farmers decarbonize, and permanent funding for helping coal miners with black lung disease.
Nice, so they don't have to keep voting on that every few years.
Exactly.
And yet, every Republican voted against it. Go figure.
Most environmental groups support the bill as a critical first step, saying much more needs to be done. In a recent broadcast, climate scientist Dr. Michael Mann of Penn State University said while the bill is not ideal, its incentives will accelerate the transition to renewable energy for industry and households.
If the measures to incentivize, to subsidize renewable energy are effective, if the carrot works, it becomes a stick, which is to say, if we incentivize renewable energy enough, then fossil fuel energy is no longer competitive, and it's too expensive, and they can't get the investments to build. Even if they've been allowed the permitting of these leases and these pipelines, they're not going to be able to get the investments.
That sounds like a delicious carrot.
The rapid spread of renewable energy in the U.S. shows that federal policy shifts do act as accelerants. The bill is headed for a likely quick passage in the Democratic-controlled House. If it passes, it will mark more than 30 years of effort to get to this point. While there is much to complain about in this bill, the alternative to it is not a better bill. It is nothing.
Well said. We'll see if it passes in the House. For much more on this story and all the ones we couldn't get to today because of it, check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com.
Are you tired of think tank approved corporate news and commentary? Are you tired of CEOs telling you what to think, who to hate, and who to vote for? Well, welcome to the Rick Smith Show. We don't take orders from some boardroom, and we don't do focus groups or talking points. We don't work for them, and we never will. I'm Rick Smith, and I work for you. Join us daily at thericksmithshow.com and download the podcast and never miss a minute.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So an interesting story over at the New Yorker magazine. Something we've talked about here on the program numerous times over the last couple of years. But the fact that the state legislatures across the country are just destroying this country. And Jane Meyer has an incredible piece that I highly suggest folks taking a look at. In fact, we'll get some links out on social media titled "State Legislatures Are Torching Democracy." And she heavily quotes my next guest, David Pepper, who has literally written the book on this. He is the author of Laboratories of Autocracy, a wake-up call from behind the lines. David, thanks for taking some time for us.
Thanks for having me back on. It's great to be with you.
So congrats on being quoted heavily in this article. It's something we've talked about numerous times. Yeah. Important issue.
It is, and I've long been a fan of Jane Mayer. Her book is behind me on one of these shelves, The Dark Money. And you and I have talked about it a lot, but I will say I've learned since you wrote the article, this is someone with a major brand among a lot of folks on the coast who may not hear it when you and I say it, but when she says it, they do. So I think it was a great story. And for those who haven't read it, it really went into depth about Ohio. We're always thought of as a bellwether. And in this case, we're a bellwether about how an extremist legislature can destroy your state. And her article made that point very, very well in a way that I think hopefully continues to wake people up in the way you and I have tried to wake people up on this over the past year.
Yeah, I mean,
but it is a great story. And I think she put it together in a very gripping way, and I think in a way that really woke people up to it.
It's interesting because, I remember on election night 2016, and I've told this story before, I was watching the results with a conservative acquaintance at the time. And when it became clear that Trump was going to win, he said to me, it's going to be interesting watching liberals become states' rights activists because the fight is at the state level. And Republicans have known this for a very long time. This is, to them, not new. I think Democrats and the left, I think they're late to the game on this.
They're late to the game. Yeah, I mean, the front line in the attack on democracy, core rights, labor rights, it's all the state house for them. They get almost everything they need to get done through state houses. I mean, look at what they did when they had the White House, the Senate, and the House in 1618. They didn't do almost anything. They passed tax cuts and they put judges into place. Why? Because most of their agenda they get done through state houses. They don't need Washington. And as long as Democrats don't go back into the states and fight for those positions, they're happy as can be just doing it all through state houses, one state at a time. And part of the beauty of it for them is they are so unaccountable in these state houses. The reason the state houses are better than Congress is because in state houses, they can pass things that are so unpopular that it would cost them elections at a higher level or at a mayor level. But in gerrymandered state houses, they can pass the craziest bills so that 10-year-old girls have to go to Indiana or they'll be forced to deliver a baby. That's not popular anywhere, but because of gerrymandered state houses, they can get away with it. So state houses have become the perfect place to go if you know that your agenda is toxic. And that's what they're doing until we get out of only federal office mindset, they will continue to do it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I look at how, in the years that I've lived in Pennsylvania, I've watched the Pennsylvania General Assembly become the same as Ohio. Very, very radicalized, very extreme. There used to be pro-labor Republicans. There aren't anymore.
Right.
Now it's the most, as you've said, the most extreme legislation that nobody supports, but yet they don't have. There's no fear of consequence because we've gotten into this moment where people are they bought the hat. They got the T-shirt. They're on the team. Yeah. They're never going to cross and vote for somebody else.
Yeah, well, it's a couple things. One, for the most part, people still have no idea what state houses do. So that anonymity is a huge help to them. Local journalism, in-state journalism is dying, so it's not even covered. And then, of course, once you've gerrymandered the districts, and this is one of the most important parts of my book, it's not only that the Pennsylvania State House does not reflect the makeup of the Pennsylvania voters. It's worse, and that's a problem. And Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan are maybe the three worst examples where the minority party is in the majority in that state house. But the way they rig these seats is, going back to what you just said, to a person, almost none of them ever worry about their next election. And once there's no accountability, all the incentives are for extremism, to avoid your next primary. There isn't any incentive left to be moderate.
Yep.
To say, as a Republican, oh, I want some exceptions when we ban abortions. That's too far. That's too much. In the world they've grown up in politically, and the only world they've lived in, that moment of moderation will end their career. So all the incentives in these non-democratic state houses push them to be extremists. And once they're, and here's sort of the double whammy. Once they are extremists, once they are corrupt, once their public outcomes are terrible, and they are, then what do they have to do to keep it all going? They have to keep gerrymandering, and they have to keep suppressing the vote.
Yep.
Because if they ever were in a fair district, they would lose. They wouldn't. You could not defend the extremism, guns everywhere, abortion bans so that 10-year-old girls, victims of rape, are included and can't and have to deliver. In a 50-50 district, you would lose 60-40, and they know it. So they have to keep subverting democracy because they would never survive having accumulated the records they've accumulated in this very non-democratic world they've set up.
Yeah,
and that's what's happening in many, many states right now.
Yeah, and Ohio is one of the 4 states across the country who they have illegal maps that they're still going to run on because law evidently doesn't matter to you guys. Hey, we're going to put forward our maps because this is what we're doing. Law be damned.
You would see this in other contexts. They show you what they care the most about and how hard they fight. And they will fight nothing harder than the need to re-gerrymander again. And that's why in Ohio, they've been willing to break the law 5 times for state house districts, 2 times for congressional districts, simply violate the Ohio Constitution, simply ignore court orders, because they know that if there's not gerrymandering, their extremism is going to cost them all the power they have. And so they fight to gerrymander more than anything in the world. And they have spent basically, as that one story you're talked about, they have spent 8 months basically violating Ohio law and the Ohio Constitution, counting on the fact that if it did it long enough, they could get what they have gotten, sadly, which is the next 2 years in Ohio, we are going to have a bunch of politicians on a map that has been found to be unconstitutional by the state Supreme Court of Ohio. It's an illegitimate, state house, but we're stuck with it. It's a terrible it's a 2-year constitutional crisis, basically. But they're so full of power and so aware that they need the gerrymandering to survive that they're willing to do even that.
Yeah, so Ohio joins Louisiana, Georgia, and Alabama. Good company there, by the way, David.
Yeah, and we legislate like the most, as the story points out, we're a pro-labor state. We're a pro-Roe v. Wade state. We're a state that, believes in the Second Amendment, but believes in common sense gun reforms. You don't see any of that from this state house. This state house is legislating as if we are the most far-right state in the country, but that's because they basically, the state house locks in extremists with no accountability.
Yeah.
But we're acting like states, even though the people of the state, if you look at any polling, they're not being represented in what comes out of the State House.
It's crazy. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show here with David Pepper, former chairman of the Ohio Democratic Party and also author of the book Laboratories of Autocracy, a wake-up call from behind the lines. We'll get links out on social media how you can grab that book. Highly suggested. Now, one of the things that the right has done masterfully is they've spent a lot of money, and Jane goes into the these groups that are out there pushing this extremism. I would argue at the state legislature level, you've got the American Legislative Exchange Council who does their homework for them. They even drill down to the county and city level with the American City and County Exchange. Corporate interest, the moneyed interests, they've figured this game out, and they're using it.
Yep.
They're using it for their needs. And all of this other stuff, this divisive stuff, I think is just the division to keep us pitted against each other. So we don't actually wake up to the reality that we're getting ripped off, and we're getting ripped off all the time.
Absolutely. The MO, and you're exactly right. The MO of all this is the corruption of the public space. And that's why I say endemic to what's happening is a disastrous downward spiral of public outcomes, because what is the 9-to-5 work product of the Ohio State House? It's taking public assets and giving them to private players through tax cuts, through for-profit online charter school scams, through energy bailouts that turn into bribery scams, to payday lending regulation, all of it. These State House members, through groups like ALEC, and I call the book Laboratories of Autocracy, not to be cute. They are literally working in tandem, in coordination, funded by things like ALEC and the Koch brothers, and coordinating all the things they're doing. But most of what they are doing is literally taking public assets and public goods, our public schools, and taking dollars out of that system and shoving it over to private players to make money, who then give some of that money back as donations. That's the system. And yes, those people, the money people, love that people are being ginned up on abortion and guns and everything else for their voting, because if it was ever as clear as it is to you and I what's actually happening, people would say, oh, you mean they're the reason my schools are falling apart? They're the reasons why we have no roads in our small town? They're the reason why my Main Street looks like 50 years ago? That's because of that State House. They'd vote them all out of office. But that's why the pairing of the extreme views and the sort of, the quote-unquote social issues that gin people up, it's not the fault of the immigration system that small town in Ohio is dying. It's because the State House is giving the assets of that town away as tax breaks to the very high end. But they don't want anyone to see that, so they gin up all those other issues. But this is also the way out, I think, long-term. We need candidates who go right to the places that are dying because of these policies and who show them, not through high voltage, rhetoric about corruption, but the way that Gretchen Whitmer said, fix the damn roads. The way that the Kansas governor, Laura Kelly, said, why do we only have 4 days of school a week? The way that Beto O'Rourke says, why do people freeze to death in Texas? Because they privatized the energy grid. There are massive public outcome failures that are resulting from these corrupted state houses. And the more you can show what those failures are, you're getting to people on the issues that affect them. And I think that's in a tougher state. I think that's one of the best ways to win is to pinpoint the disastrous public outcomes and to communicate about them in a way that the average person who's less political will think, yeah, 4 days of school a week is crazy. What am I supposed to do with my kids on a Friday? Or Gretchen Whitmer, I was in Michigan the other day, like, yeah, the roads are pretty bad. How do we fix them? Public outcomes are plummeting because these state houses are giving away the public resources to the private people who keep them in office.
Well, they're
not public servants anymore.
No, but
they're serving private interests.
Again, this is stuff I've been talking about for years, and I've been imploring Democrats to go fight these fights in the places where the fights are. But it seems that no, we're not going to fund campaigns that don't have a +5 rating because. No, you've got to get where the fight is. You've got to go back to rural America. You've got to talk to rural voters. You've got to make the pitch on how they're getting fleeced by these bad policies. And again, this comes at the top of the Democratic Party. So I blame them as much as I blame anybody for the things that have gone on because they haven't fought the fights.
Yeah, I think once you get and I think they're better now than they were a few years ago, by the way. Jamie Harrison was a South Carolina Democratic Party chair. He gets this. But it's got to be it's got to be everybody. And they need to be thinking, the swing state federal office only mentality is killing us. Because once you decide that's all you're going to do, you're leaving millions of people out of the conversation. And you're leaving dozens of candidates or hundreds of candidates in state houses, underfunded or non-funded. And you're leaving dozens of districts uncontested entirely. And what happens when you leave dozens of districts in this? If you look at 2020, there were dozens of districts in Ohio, Georgia, Arizona, arguably swing states that didn't even have an opponent. What are you doing? You're letting the extremists have a monopoly. And look what happened in Kansas the other day. Up or down question on right to choose. Kansas vote for choice. But these extremists, if they had real opponents, their records are really hard to defend, but we give them a gift because we don't even run against them. Or if we do, it's so little money that you might as well not be running. So, yeah, we have to shift it. And by the way, I'm not saying you're going to win in most of these places. You'll win sometimes. But it's the silence of not running at all that's the disaster.
Yep.
They have a monopoly. And extremism is going to calcify if they're the only ones talking. In the federal swing state mindset of the Democratic side, which is still the dominant mindset, it's literally giving the extremists the playing field all to themselves in front of, I dare say, tens or hundreds of millions of Americans. And so not only is it a losing strategy, it's a dangerous strategy, and it's why you're seeing extremism explode in a lot of places.
No,
change.
We're certainly in for scary times. And the abortion issue is one of those things that, you look at what happened on the federal level. The protection is now gone, and the states have literally gone crazy, as you pointed out.
Yeah. No, they will until, here's the reaction at the highest level to that Supreme Court decision. And this is going to sound counterintuitive to some people, but it's long. This is a long game. We got to think about it all as a long game, not the next cycle. Most U.S. senators I watched following the abortion decision, the only thing they had to say was, we got to go elect more U.S. senators. Okay? The answer long-term is, pardon my French, who the hell passed that bill in that state house, and how do we hold them accountable? We need the individual state house members themselves to start to fear, like maybe they do in Kansas after last week. Wait a second. I might lose my office.
Yep.
They don't care if someone elects a Democratic senator from some state they're not from. That's not going to stop them from doing what they're doing. We need to have the infrastructure and resources of this party say, wait a second, you passed a bill in the Ohio State House that required the inspections of young people's genitals in sporting events, or that said that that 10-year-old rape victim couldn't get any help. You're going to lose your office because you did that. And until we start to go there, they will never stop doing what they're doing. They need to feel that they're in their own political path. There is accountability for being extremists. If all we do is say, okay, we don't like the court decision, let's elect a U.S. senator from somewhere. Of course, we have to elect those senators. And if we don't go deeper and say, but let's also hold accountable the extremists in the Ohio State House or the Texas State House who passed a crazy bill in the first place, then they are always on offense. And face it, Senate, that's our defense. Offense is at the State House. If you're never on offense, long-term, you're losing.
There you go. No, you're spot on right. The book, Laboratories of Autocracy, a wake-up call from behind the lines. Highly suggest taking a look at it. We'll get links out on social media. David, always great talking with you. Congrats on the piece. Hope folks will check out the New Yorker piece. State legislatures are torching democracy, written by Jane Meyer. We'll get that out as well. Good stuff, David. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks. Take care. Have a good night.
Great stuff. Make sure you check out that stuff. Going to take a quick break. Right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk.
If you're a fan of the show, you've heard our labor history in 2 segments, and you can hear them on the radio pretty much anywhere in the U.S. Labor history has never been more important than it is right now. So here's what we'd like you to do. Tell a teacher. Tell a teacher that labor history is important and that they can get digestible 2-minute lessons that are absolutely free. Free to download, free to use, free to share. Tell a teacher to go to thericksmithshow.com/history and help us put labor back where it belongs, in the classroom. You know, generations of American workers fought, bled, and died to build the American way of life. It's our job to keep their stories alive. Go tell a teacher that we're here to help them do just that. Find us at thericksmithshow.com/history today.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So I hope people have learned from the January 6th committee hearings that nothing you put on social media, nothing is private. It can be found and used against you. So this is one of the things I've told my kids, don't write stuff on social media. It's not anonymous. It's not private. It can be found. And women, I'm now talking to you, because now this is special. This is special. The people who are in charge of Facebook, Meta, evidently Meta, they provided Nebraska prosecutors with private messages from Facebook from a 17-year-old girl talking about having an abortion that's now being used against her in a criminal trial. She is going to be prosecuted because of their crazy law. Again, back to what David was talking about, crazy legislatures doing crazy stuff. But now you've got social media who have charged this teen with 3 crimes, one of which a felony for, quote, removing, concealing, abandoning a dead human body. Yep. This is going to be interesting times. Nothing is going to be sacred. You are going to have, thanks to the Texas law, you're going to have the dog, the bounty hunter stuff. You're going to have people, checking your apps. You're going to have, maybe it's going to be the new reality series. Maybe it's going to be, it seems very Orwellian to me. And again, I go back to, I read 1984 when I was in high school. Remember having the conversations in class. I'm sure a lot of folks, if they read it in high school English class, they remember the conversations as well. And I remember at the time going, this is not the world I want to live in. This is a bad idea. And I got to tell you, I thought most of the people that I was in the room with, I thought we all agreed, this is a bad world. This isn't the world we want to live in. Must have been some of those people in the room thought, hey, this sounds like a good playbook. Maybe this is what we should do. Because it sounds like the direction we're going. It sounds like a very dangerous situation. Now, the case, evidently, she's being charged with these 5 crimes related to performing or attempting to perform an abortion at 8 weeks past the state's 20-week ban. But I go back to social media, what you put out on that social media platform. They are now going to use that against you. So I think there should be a disclaimer. Maybe read the terms of service. Whatever you write can and will be used against you in a court of law. And nothing is anonymous. Now, me personally, I've always known that. But how many kids do? And in what world are we going to, I don't know. We're very strange times. But David's right. In order to save our democracy, in order to save this country, it's the states. We've got to take back those state houses. We've got to take back some bit of sanity. Got to bring back some accountability, which sadly just is not there. Just sadly is not there. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts, questions, comments, anything on your mind. By all means, email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you miss any portion of the program, make sure you grab the podcast. Always there, always available. Share with your friends, share with your neighbors, your coworkers. Good stuff. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, our good friend Will Bunch is going to be here. Going to share some thoughts on Bad President's Day. August 8th, Bad President's Day. Also going to get some thoughts on his new book, I guess just out. Right back after this. Stick around. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1979. That was the day that young women workers at the YH Trading Company in Seoul, South Korea, staged a sit-in strike. The women made wigs for export. The company had been one of the leading exporters in the nation. But then the managers began to move the profits from the wig company to a shipping company under the same ownership, as well as to a film production company. This drained the profits from the wig factory and left it in massive debt. The owners shut down the company without warning, firing all of the employees. These women did not only lose their jobs. Water and electricity were turned off at the factory dormitories where the workers lived. A union represented the young women. The union planned a strike at the building, but the police were called in to break it up. The workers decided to move their protest to the local headquarters of the New Democratic Party. The party was in opposition to the leader of Seoul, President Park Chung-hee. The fired women were welcomed at the New Democratic Party headquarters. There, they decided to stage a sit-in to bring attention to their situation. The workers' sit-in only lasted 3 days. Then 1,000 police stormed the building. They overturned furniture and broke windows. They dragged the women out of the building violently. One woman, 21-year-old Kim Young-suk, died in the raid. She fell from the roof of the building in a clash with the police. 4 of the union leaders were sent to prison. More than 200 of the workers were expelled out of the city of Seoul and sent back home to rural areas. Today's Labor History in 2 brought to you in memory of Carol Hillman, a passionate friend of workers and volunteer of the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
America's stringent system of corporate capitalism keeps carving out new depths of worker exploitation. Take Chick-fil-A, a right-wing, Atlanta-based fast food operation boasting that it follows, quote, biblically based principles. Like slavery? Well, Chick-fil-A hasn't gone quite that biblical yet, but one of its franchises recently pioneered a novel labor compensation innovation that comes close, literally paying some workers chicken feed. This outlet of the $11 billion a year chain called on area residents to staff its new drive-through express. But in lieu of wages, they were offering chicken sandwiches. Join the express team and you'd be paid 5 chicken items per shift. That worked out to less than minimum wage, plus indigestion. What we have here is one more absurd illustration that America's sanctified work ethic is a fraud, an empty promise that you'll get ahead if you just work hard enough, keep your nose to the grindstone, and stay loyal to the corporate order for life, no matter how vacuous. But the game is up, for workers across the economy are now seeking more from life than 50 years of serving the company. They're even organizing anti-workaholism groups like I Don't Want a Career, Rest is Resistance, and the NAP Ministry. But don't mistake this rebellion as mere satire by a few puckish slackers. Today's nationwide shortage of workers, from truck drivers to teachers, is not a momentary economic blip, but a defiant declaration of independence from a form of work that is life-sucking. This is Jim Hightower saying, people are not afraid of hard work, nor averse to long hours, if the task and the cause are worth both time and effort. And worth it is increasingly being measured in higher values than dollars alone, including a sense of purpose, community, respect, fairness, and fun.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So I like the idea of my next guest in his most recent piece. August 8th should be designated as a new holiday. And maybe we could have the day off. Celebrate Bad President's Day. Maybe not a bad idea. And maybe not one that people would want to live up to. Maybe this would be one of those cautionary things going, hey, You don't want to be remembered on August 8th. I just have Tricky Dick and the Orange Marmalade Menace. Those would be your examples. I think we should start that movement. Anyway, here to share some thoughts on the on the raid yesterday, and well, the predictable conservative reaction, the freak out, the beginning of the Civil War. I've asked our good friend Will Bunch to come share some thoughts. He's a national columnist over at the Philadelphia Inquirer. Also, he's got a new book out. I'm going to want to talk about that after the Ivory Tower falls. Got to get to that too, but got to talk about the BFD of yesterday. Will, thanks for taking time for us.
Yeah, hey Rick, thanks for having me on the show.
So, kind of a big deal, I think. Having a former president and his abode raided, kind of a big deal.
Yeah, well, I mean, a couple things. First of all, it's never happened before in the 246-year history of the United States, so that's pretty significant, right? So that's number one. But I think more importantly, I think the big picture. I mean, on one hand, I think we have to be careful because we don't know exactly what the FBI is investigating here, and although I mean, there've been reports that it's centered on these classified documents, but beyond that, there's no specificity, and so. It's probably not wise to speculate too much on what's in there, what they could find,
and haven't, and won't.
But what I would say though is, we know Merrick Garland by now. We watched him serve for Attorney General for the last year and a half, and we know the biggest complaint, frankly, about him is that he's too cautious, that he moves slowly, that he's very deliberate. So for him to do this, and to use the term that everybody's using today, to cross this Rubicon, right, and this point of no return to some extent in investigating Trump, suggests that there's something serious, and it's probably something. I was talking to somebody else about this earlier today, and I hate to invoke Donald Rumsfeld because to say I wasn't a fan is an understatement, but. Donald Rumsfeld did have that famous line, right, about, that there are known unknowns and then there are unknown unknowns. And I think right now, what really triggered this raid is in the unknown unknown category to some degree, because something set off alarms probably having to do with national security, which is huge, right? Yeah. And but we don't know what it is. But I just, the right's interpretation that this is just a political, overreach, that just doesn't hold water. I mean, I don't think there's any way to look at this other than the fact that the Justice Department thinks, and a judge signed off on this, thinks that there's serious evidence of a crime at Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, but I always find it interesting that the law and order people, because Trump just gave a speech. He's going to be the law and order guy, and you're going to send the National Guard into the cities to crack down. And the law and order people, when law and order is used against them, not very happy about it. When their criming gets exposed and their criming is questioned, not happy about it.
Yeah, well, you remember Rick the old saying in the 70s or the 80s, and they used to go around saying, "Oh, a conservative is a liberal who's been mugged," right? That was the old joke. And nowadays it's like a police abolitionist, is a conservative who's been investigated by the FBI. Now they all want to abolish the FBI and abolish the Justice Department, and it's just, I mean, it's really revealing. In fact, I'm trying to sketch out a column in my brain about. I mean, just what this shows about the broader attitude about justice in America. Retribution as a form of justice is always for somebody else. It's not for.
No. And look, I listened to the Laura Ingrams and the other people, the pundits, going, wait till we're back in power, we'll show them. And you go, wait a second, what happened to the black and white thinking on the right of you're right or wrong? Because there have been tons of stories out there about how he took a bunch of classified documents. He got a bunch of boxes of stuff that probably shouldn't have lifted, probably shouldn't have been in his possession, probably should have turned that stuff back over. Now, again, speculating on what this could be about, And there's a bunch of known knowns that are things that are out there that you go, this could be a whole bunch of things. Now, I want to know what it is, and I hope we find out very soon. And I believe this one we will find out one way or another. But I find it interesting that the right is having a total freak out. And as I said at the beginning of the show, we're going to find out who the fascists are, because they're going to be the ones today who are the reactionaries, who are the ones who are like Laura Ingraham saying, when we get back into power, we'll show you.
Right. You know, and, Kevin McCarthy basically, all but sent notice to Merrick Garland that he's going to be impeached if the Republicans take control of the House again, which is, it's something voters should know about. It's one more reason to really get out there and vote and make sure the Democrats take control of the House. Because, if Republicans get enough seats from, gerrymandering and whatever, and if they can get even like a 2 or 3 vote majority in the House, and Kevin McCarthy is the Speaker, God, at this point, God knows how many Biden administration officials they're going to try and impeach. I mean, that's going to be, we know they don't have any interest in passing any legislation or doing anything to assist the middle class. So presumably, they would be spending all their time on these investigations and seeking revenge against.
No, they've already said that. You're right.
Yeah, and they want to impeach the DHS secretary. I don't even. He just seems like the nicest guy. I don't even get some half this stuff. It's like. It's crazy. No, and you had Trump, in his little sphere coming out and saying, hey, when we get back into power, Schedule F, we're going to go after those federal employees, fire everybody, and we're going to make patronage great again, Will. So we're going to go back to the days of patronage. Yeah, well, that's really the key to, a fascist or authoritarian or autocratic or whatever you want to call it government. Is getting rid of the people that. He calls them the deep state. I call them the entrenched public servants who keep Washington running. And, if you look, I know you have, and I have too, read so many articles in the last year and a half about January 6th and how it went down and what happened. And again, you see it's these entrenched public servants, the people that Republicans claim are the deep state that they want to get rid of, are the ones who stopped Trump from pulling off a coup, whether it was, the generals, the people of the Pentagon who wouldn't do certain things, the Justice Department attorneys who threatened to resign, and just a lot of day-to-day functionaries that, you don't hear about who did their job. Yep. And Trump's goal is to get rid of them.
Yeah. No, I mean the boring bureaucrats, and I say this all the time. I don't want those boring bureaucrats to be part of the political wins. I want people who are going to do their job, regardless of who's at the top of the food chain. They're there to do a job for the American people, and that's what their focus is. Not to be ideological, not to be loyal to whoever the king of the day is, but to do their job and do it well. And we've got folks who evidently listen to what Trump says. Evidently don't want that.
Yeah, because it's an obstacle to him governing the way he wants to govern.
Yeah, because what's really what's screwy to me is just how stupid the man is. I mean, because the story yesterday broke as well, and for me it was the top story of the day. I mean, the raid of his palace is one thing. I mean, historic and all that stuff, but the fact that he asked our generals why they couldn't be more like the German generals. That to me was just kind of like, what are you talking about? The German generals tried to kill Hitler a number of times. In fact, there was a movie made about it. You should have at least seen that if you didn't read about it.
Which is worse, the fact that he wants to, recreate German history, or the fact that he doesn't even know or understand German history. I mean, you're absolutely right. And, in my column today that was published today, I talk about what happened to Mar-a-Lago and a little bit about the meaning of it, but I also tried to make the point that we paid almost no attention to his speech over the weekend at CPAC. And, I mean, you alluded to it briefly, where he's talking about, rivers of blood in the streets of our city, and there was just all this kind of crazy, blood and soil fascist type talk about criminals and how Biden had betrayed our national honor, by leaving Afghanistan, even though leaving Afghanistan was, Trump's idea, basically. But it's crazy. But so I mean, Trump's a danger on two fronts, basically, right? I mean, it's one is just his criminality, the fact that he has no respect for the rule of law, and the other is his inherent philosophy of, authoritarian dictatorship type rule. And I mean, those two things obviously, if you get like in a Venn diagram, they would overlap, right? I mean, those two things are related to each other, but they're both threats. I mean, Trump has to be stopped because he's a criminal, and Trump has to be stopped because he's a fascist, basically. And stopping him as a criminal under the cover of law is probably the most fruitful way to prevent. If you can use the criminal code to prevent him from running in 2024, you've taken care of the other problem as well. But
it's got to be done. This is one of those moments where this has got to be done in the light of day, and you better have every T crossed and every I dotted, and this better be ironclad, and it better be held up under every scrutiny, because look, the right wing outrage machine already attacking the judge as a pedophile, already going after all the way down the chain of all the way down, everyone who was involved in this somehow is either going to be a pedophile or a liberal or Joe Biden supporter or something, because no one can just say, hey, the law is what the law is anymore.
Look at these hordes of people who showed up outside Mar-a-Lago after this went down, with their Trump flags and their Trump RVs or campers or whatever they are, and nothing untoward or violent happened because it wasn't January 6th. They're not going to march on Mar-a-Lago. That's their friend, not their enemy, right? So, but on the other hand, and I wrote about this several months ago. Let's say, just hypothetically, let's say that this grand jury investigation in Atlanta, in Fulton County, Georgia, leads to Trump's indictment, and he's got to go get arraigned on criminal charges in Georgia. These people are going to gather outside the courthouse, and what's going to happen then?
This is this weird world where, Will, I mean, I'm looking at it from the right's perspective. I'm trying to put myself in a Trump supporter's perspective, going, okay, there's all of these investigations going on in all of these different places, and you go, is it possible that he's just committed a lot of crimes? Is it possible that, people are looking into all of his behaviors and looking at it through the filter of law, as they always do, and he's just guilty? Is that possible?
Yeah, it's interesting to see the response from the right, because, everybody immediately is out there about how this is an overreach and this is just the most outrageous abuse of government power. And, there's just no room for the possibility that maybe this guy actually committed a crime. You know, it's,
I mean, look at what they did to Bill Clinton over, the cigar and the other thing. Look what they did. Look what they did there. Look what conservatives did there. Now imagine, if you will, had Bill Clinton done any of the things that Trump's being accused of.
He'd probably still be behind bars today, I would imagine.
Or worse. And that's the problem I have. Last question on this I got to get to you. Will we find out?
You got to get to my book. Yeah, okay.
I got to get to the book real quick. But I got to know who the FBI agent who had to dig down in the toilet to look for ripped up papers. I got to know who that was.
The poor guy, I know. He deserves a raise, that's for sure.
I'm sure they do not pay him enough. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show here with Will Bunch. Will is a national columnist for the Philly Inquirer. He's also got a new book, and I got to get to this. It's titled After the Ivory Tower Falls, How College Broke the American Dream and Blew Up Our Politics and How to Fix It, written by Will Bunch. Will, tell me, what made you write this book?
Well, every election cycle, we see more and more this divide in our politics, where how did the Democrats become the party of people with college degrees, and how did the Republicans become the party of white working class voters, who don't have degrees, who didn't go to college. I was kind of fascinated by this phenomenon, and I wondered for years how come people on the right never got mad at like the CEOs who were shutting down the factories in their towns, but they just despised, the media and college professors, Hollywood stars, people like that. And from my curiosity about that, this book was born. And if college attainment is now the biggest fault line in American politics, what is it about college itself? I think that's the level that nobody had been looking at, that I tried to look at in this book. What is it about higher education that's gone off the rails in this country that causes so much bitterness and anger? So that's what I try and explore in the book.
I think I can't wait to read it, and I'm waiting for my signed copy. But it's one of these things where a lot of the people that I know who didn't go to college have this. You're right. This kind of hatred of colleges and of universities and higher ed and of the people who have education. It's almost like there's this glorifying of ignorance. And we see this played out in the anti-vax movement. We see this played out in a whole bunch of places, especially when you're talking about, those liberal professors, because everyone claims to know a liberal professor.
Well, why does the United States have the highest rate of climate change denial? Look at QAnon and then January 6th and the big lie. I mean, these are the ultimate conspiracy theories. And this hatred, like you said, from working class people, this hatred of college kind of evolves into this hatred of knowledge. People have complained about college since the 60s and the student protests of that era, but it's really only in the last 20 years, I would say, that people really turned against science, right? And why is that? And I mean, just quickly, I would say, I think the thing that, when you talk to your friends, what's happening here is we proclaimed that, college and getting a college degree was the American dream, but we also described this system as a meritocracy, right? That it's not really a common good. Higher education isn't really a common good program. It's a program where you rise to your level because of your own merit and your own drive and self-worth.
Yep.
Which isn't really true. I mean, in reality, the system is rigged in many different ways. But this is the story we tell ourselves. That it's a meritocracy. And the thing is, 63% of the American adult population doesn't have a college degree. So nearly 2/3. And so, are you really saying to these people that they don't have merit because they weren't able to go to college or because they didn't want to sit in the classroom for 4 more years? That they have less worth, but the people, people who don't have college degrees get that vibe from the professional managerial class, and when you go to like a Trump rally, as I've done as a journalist, you just see these resentments on display. I mean,
I think a big part of it, Will, is life's been hard for folks. You go back to a certain point where if you didn't go to college, you went and you got a good union job at the factory or the mill or wherever, and you led a good life. You were able to buy a house, raise your kids, retire with dignity and respect and security, and that's all gone. Union density is at historic lows. We don't have the manufacturing base. So, you're imagining that dream that we were told, because I was told as a kid the only way you're getting into the middle class is if you get a college degree. And they're seeing that and they're struggling, and they have this vision that, all these college educated people, they're living the high life because they're seeing it on TikTok and Instagram. They're seeing all this projection. So they're going, my life's hard. They're living the dream. I had to pay for them. Screw them. And that's what they've been fed through talk radio and through the F channel and all of the outrage candy machines that they consume. So I'm not surprised.
Yeah, and the thing is, they say, well, elites in this country have all the power, right? They run the media, they run Hollywood, they run the universities. Now they run the corporations. And the one thing that college graduates don't have is they don't have a majority of the population. And so, if we're going to be a true democracy, the 63% without degrees can get out there and outvote the 37% that have degrees. And that's more or less what happened in 2016. And it's funny because people in the college-educated elite class, the people who became, who called it, the people in the suburbs, affluent people who called themselves the Trump resistance. I mean, they had spent their whole life ignoring working class people, right? That they called it flyover country and looked down on it. And now with Trump in charge, all of a sudden they were furious that these people were running their country, And I think it really explains. I think the college divide, I think, really explains so much of our politics and so much of what's happened, in the last, 10, 20 years. I had a blast writing this book and looking into all this stuff.
I cannot wait to see it. The title is After the Ivory Tower Falls, How College Broke the American Dream and Blew Up Our Politics and How to Fix It, written by Will Bunch. We'll make sure we get links out on social media, how you can pick that up. It is available, right?
Yep, it's been out for a week now, and it's got a nice review in the New York Times. So I'm really excited to have it out there.
Outstanding stuff. I'm sure we'll have you back again to talk about it in more depth after I've read it.
That would be great.
But I wanted to make sure we got a little plug in so folks can take a look at it.
There's a lot of ground to cover, so there's definitely more to talk about.
Beautiful stuff. Thanks, Will. I appreciate the time, man.
Thanks, Rick, for having me. I really appreciate it.
Our good friend Will Bunch. Make sure you check out the book After the Ivory Tower Falls. Like I said, we'll get links out on social media how you can check that out. Quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show.
Tired of think tank approved corporate news and commentary? Are you tired of CEOs telling you what to think, who to hate, and who to vote for? Well, welcome to the Rick Smith Show. We don't take orders from some boardroom, and we don't do focus groups or talking points. We don't work for them, and we never will. I'm Rick Smith, and I work for you. Join us daily at thericksmithshow.com and download the podcast and never miss a minute. Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Check out our website, thericksmithshow.com. Questions, comments, something on your mind. Email me, rick at thericksmithshow.com. So, funny little story to go along with my congressman, Scott Perry. As I said at the beginning of the show today, Scott Perry, Representative Scott Perry, who we know was deeply involved in the post-2020 election attempts to overthrow our government and our results. He says the FBI has seized his cell phone. Got a search warrant this afternoon. So it's just not Trump. It's maybe a bunch of the players, maybe a bunch of these folks. Now I gotta wonder. I think Scott Perry's not a dumb guy. He's a general. I mean, he's not a stupid person. I gotta think he's deleted what incriminating evidence may be there. Just kind of thinking. But let's hope not. Let's hope whatever. I mean, you would think after all of his name came out and he was begging for the pardons, evidently, that phone would have found water and electricity or something, run over by a truck. I don't know. Bottom of the ocean. I don't know. Anyway. This morning, the president signed the CHIPS and Science Act into law, and I love the fact that the DNC sent Representative Perry with no cell phone. They sent him a basket of chips, some potato chips, because he did not vote for the CHIPS Act. And as they said, I hope he enjoys these chips since he clearly has no interest in the kind that will soon be lowering costs and growing our economy. Now, they didn't just send it to Scott Perry, send it to all the Republicans who voted against the CHIPS Act. And you go, how is it possible? How is it possible that the Republicans voted against that bill? And it's because, well, as I say all the time, Republicans hate working people. And this is another example of that happening. But I hope Scott Perry and the rest of his GOP friends enjoy their potato chips. And I hope they gave him enough because, maybe that's what he'll need, hopefully in retirement. Got an election coming up, folks. Time to start using your right to term limits, throwing some of these bums out.
Anyway, if you missed any of today's program, make sure you grab the podcast. Wherever you get yours, you will find ours. From iTunes to iHeart, Stitcher to Podbean, everywhere in between, there they will be. Also, love to hear your thoughts. Rick at thericksmithshow.com. Thanks for being here.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.